Hey there, Lorraine Smith here. I'm going to walk us through some of the latest findings, specifically the track that I'm trying to lay to make real progress on the JBS Materiality assessment. And to do that, I'm going to focus on the first theme that's been, I'll say it's been emerging and at the same time holding me back. And you'll see why in a little bit. And maybe if you've got feedback or suggestions, you could help me out. On that note, there's a link on the opening slide that goes to more information about how I'm working out loud here, what all's going on. And there's a new link. I just added this the other day to a guest book. I put this here because I often see people in the deck. I see sort of an anonymous, Google octopus or whatever, and I don't know who's there. That's totally fine. That's part of doing this in the public square. But if people would like to leave comments or feedback, I would find it really helpful. You can do so anonymously by clicking on that guest book. You can also leave your name if you'd like. All to say, let's have a little look at some of the themes that are emerging. I've been capturing them on this kind of in progress theme slide. There's actually lots of notes in the notes field here from an earlier round of theme capturing, but they're really starting to take shape around three key themes. And at the moment, I want to actually just focus on the first one, that disclosures are opaque and confusing. And the reason I want to focus there is because it's been what, to be really honest, I have found is holding me back, just trying to make sense of the basics of the company so that I can put some time into assessing, does the company live its purpose? So first figuring out what is its purpose, and then does the company seem to be living its purpose, i.e. does it earn revenue based on that purpose? And do stakeholders from the wider world think that that purpose is contributing to creating an economy in the service of life? Well, it would help if I could figure out what the company's purpose is and what it does. So I'll walk us through a set of slides, all still very much in progress. All these yellow flags here are sort of notes to myself. But this number one theme, and I've kind of created a little set of steps for this theme that I'll be fleshing out to explain more about what I'm finding. I'm going to breeze through it here. This is both process, just kind of sharing out loud how I'm pulling this information together, and skimming along some of the findings at a glance. So I really do just start with the basics. What does the company say about itself? And this is pulled from their most recent sustainability report, which is actually for the financial year 2021. I expect we're about to see a new one coming out. It's kind of killing me that I can't see that yet. But on the other hand, I think, oh, well, who knows? Maybe somebody from JBS is checking this stuff out and it's going to help their next round of reporting. I would like that very much. Let me know, anyone from JBS. My tip jar is also linked at the end. So I take a look at the basics of what they say their highlights are. And then I start to ask questions from a materiality perspective. And I just lift up some top of mind things that surface for me. They talk a lot about acquisitions, so 11.2 billion in acquisitions in Brazilian reais. And so a question that comes up for me is, what's the direction of travel for those acquisitions? Are they focused on better social and environmental impacts, or is it sort of more of the big industrial ag? Questions like that I surface as I go, and I won't go through them all right now. I'll just stay on the theme of this kind of challenging basic information. I touched on this in a previous video, so I won't hover here too long. Just to note that one of my first struggles was just with basic Googling. There's global information on their US site, there's global information on their Brazilian site, and the global information doesn't match. I say a lot more about that somewhere else. Likewise, I talk about how there's convoluted information on their purpose. It mostly hinges on food. And by the way, these slides are all very much in progress, so maybe by the time you see this, there's a more refined set, depending on when you take a look. But point being, even just trying to home in on the purpose is a little bit tricky. I feel like I've got enough of a sense, and I'll just go back to the opening here where they state the purpose is to feed the world with the best there is. There's lots of variation on that messaging, but I'm going to kind of trust that their purpose is around feeding lots of people and doing it as well as they can, and let the verbiage be inconsistent as it is. Now, then another piece that I find really confusing just in the basics is trying to get their, sorry, I want to make myself a little smaller here. There we go. Just to get the basics of their operations. Where are they and what are they doing? Because as I mentioned, with the global stuff, they've actually got two different maps about what they do where. So I was trying to dig a little bit deeper into what they do, where in their 2021 ESG or sustainability report, they actually provide a lot of information. So they've got this infographic here. And at first it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it looks like it makes sense. But honestly, and I'm not saying this to throw anyone under the bus, I'm sure the designers did their best with the information they had and the time and resources they had, but I invite you to spend some time with this infographic and try to break it down. It looks kind of impressive, like, oh yeah, we got a map of the world, we got some operations, but the words here don't quite line up with the colored pieces here. And, you know, it's kind of like you can get a general sense, oh, they're in a lot of countries, they've got quite a few brands. Man, I could live with it being a little bit of a messy, not perfect infographic. It's frustrating, like you'd like it to match up, but wait, there's more. I'm also trying to understand, you know, where does the buck stop? Like, how does, you know, with the Brazil USA piece, the part I was trying to get at is like, okay, well, who's making decisions? Where is value flowing? How is it being created? Operational piece here is like, okay, sort of getting a sense there's a lot going on. And then I started to dig into, well, who owns the company? Like, who's the parent? And this is still in progress. I'm trying to figure this out. And if anybody watching this actually knows the answer and you can just point me to the public disclosures, and I really do only use like corporate disclosures, not investigative reporting, not something on BuzzFeed. I'm looking at disclosures that a company's legal counsel would have signed off on. But I take pointers where I can find them. And so Google has lots of stuff. I Google the company, and this is the global out of Brazil. And according to the Google, the parent is JNF Investimentos. Who's JNF Investimentos? According to the Google, which I don't think makes sense, the parent is JBJ Agropecuaria, which, if we take a closer look there, which we can do in a sec, we see a very different world. And then JBS USA has as the parent the Brazilian company, and then it's got a bunch of subsidiaries. So, okay, it's a global company, lots of things going on, a little bit tough to get a bead on the hierarchy. When I go to JNF Investimentos, which is listed as the parent of the Brazilian global company, I see, and by the way, I hyperlink all of these so that anybody can go and take a look further. These are all public slides. You can click on these links and follow for yourself. I've made these very messy slides, which I am in the process of tidying up, just to kind of capture and be like, okay, what, and try to line it all up. And in JNF Investimentos, it's going to be hard to see on this video, but I can tell you this grid, this matrix of the companies they own, one of them is JBS. A kind of funny side note is there's a mining company that just, as part of JNF Investimentos, just finalized the acquisition of Vale's iron ore, and that kind of caught my eye. Vale is a company that I've had some experience. I've had some conversations with them on a personal, non-commercial level, and have a family history with that mining company. So I always find it interesting to see, and I was not expecting the company that owns JNF, that owns JBS Food, is also buying up parts of Vale. So it's super confusing. And then in their annual reporting, we've got these joint ventures, some of which are wholly owned, some of which are wholly owned subsidiaries, partially owned. Some of the names match other parts. So see here, Swift Foods, Toledo, it's probably very hard to see. JBS Confinamento. Okay, so there's lots of companies. Let's just keep going. What happens here? Oh, a little pit stop along JBJ Agropecuaria. Remember, according to some ways of looking at this, they are the parent company of JNF Investimentos, which is the parent company of JBS Foods. Although, I don't know that the parents are really the parents. I think there's a lot of kids running around. But the purpose of JBJ Agropecuaria is to focus on people, technology and innovation, and environmental management. We don't really, every company needs a purpose. It's something that guides them without losing their essence, but the purpose isn't fully stated. There's a little bit of information, but not a lot. And basically this company seems to be a company with farms, confinement operations, sometimes called CAFOs, confined animal feed operations, I believe it stands for. 200,000 head of cattle that they slaughter annually. So that's a lot of cows, but is that all the cows? It's messy. Stay with me. If you're confused, welcome to my world. That's agropecuaria. And then now I'm digging in JBS's, as in these guys, the Brazilian company. I'm digging in their annual report, which, by the way, in a previous video I had said I was having a really hard time finding their investor information. I obviously just wasn't looking very well. I did find it. There is an investor section on their website that I'm clicking to here now, and on that I could then download their financial statements. So that was just like me getting lost in the interwebs. So when I go digging deeper into their annual report, I see information, financial disclosures about both accounts receivable and accounts payable. So money's coming in, money's going out to, for instance, at the bottom here, JBJ Agropecuaria. Money coming in, money going out. Confinamento, money coming in, money going out. So again, these are the companies that are sort of wholly owned joint venture subsidiaries. I believe this is just the way the accounting is done. I trust there's nothing untoward going on here. This is following generally accepted accounting principles, and they also follow the other accounting practice, and they disclose which one's which. Sometimes it's both. And presumably all of their controllers and legal folks have signed off on this. My point here is it's awfully difficult to figure out who's what. I also circled here Sierra and JBS USA because this is still just me trying to follow, okay, what is this company? What do they do? Are they living their purpose? So I'm still just trying to process that and get basic information. In a previous video, I mentioned a little bit about the ownership structure and the global CEO, etc. So as I was digging, I was like, why don't I just try to follow one thread, such as JBS USA? And when I follow JBS USA, and take your time at your leisure, you can access all of this. I kind of highlight how does this flow. So we got global, goes down through global president into USA. Here's the USA branch of the tree. Here's the head of USA beef. I thought, well, why don't I just follow JBS USA beef? Because there's quite a bit in the sustainability report about JBS beef. The thing I was finding really confusing, and here we go into more confusing infographic land, we've got the JBS USA operations map. Setting aside the pain and suffering that a geography teacher would experience if she looked at this map and saw that Canada is about the size of New Zealand and it's detached from the United States, and Australia is a little bit north of Europe, and etc. Let us also notice, and I'll just share some of the strange details that I'm finding just kind of mind-boggling. This infographic legend is exactly the same as this infographic legend. All of the numbers are the same. So it repeats, but it doesn't quite match. So if you are bored and you want to count 18 beef processing plants, you won't find 18 here. You might if you add them up, but both pages don't always doubly add up. I honestly felt like I was going to have a stroke. And it may just be I didn't put enough time into carefully counting, but I don't think it should be that hard. And then what I find especially confusing is this is JBS USA beef, of which a significant percentage of its business is Australia. And if we go back to the overall structure, we also have JBS Australia here. So is JBS USA, JBS, I don't know. I'm confused. Sticking with the confusion, I go into the annual report. I say, enough with the sustainability report. I can't take it anymore because I'm getting very confused about what's what, although I will show you a little bit more in a sec. And I just thought, I'm going to just go into the financial statements because generally speaking, there's less clutter in there, maybe more smaller print, but I find usually more useful details. So this map is taken from that statement. It's literally a screen grab, and it shows total revenue by region, and that's useful, even though it doesn't break it out by business unit, etc. That's fine. Just gives me a good broad stroke of where is the money coming in from. Biggest slice of the pie is in North America, and then it breaks across. Then I was trying to understand by business unit, like what is this money being generated by? Is it beef, pork, leather, collagen? There's a lot of different products. And so what is it? And I was able to find a table that had this data, and I actually plugged it into a spreadsheet to create this pie chart, but it's directly pulled from the annual report. There's lots more about acquisitions and such. I won't go into that right now. But this felt kind of useful, but it really lacks details given how many brands and how much activity there is in the company. So I was trying to wrap my mind around it further. So I went deeper into the annual report. This is a very boring table, which I created by lifting it out of the this part of the annual report. I feel like this is like the most boring process video ever, but it's helping me talk it through. So I hope it's useful in some way to whatever lovely listener might be taking this in. And please tell me what would be more useful. But you'll see here, this is page 51 of their annual financial statement, fiscal year, or at least calendar year 2021. And they list the operating activities. So I was like, oh, okay, well, this tells me what they're doing. What are they doing? JBS SA, the Brazilian kind of parent company-ish, does these things: beef processing, slaughtering, blah, blah, leather production, blah, blah. Talks about where. This is all Brazil. Then it goes to other company names: Sierra, Meat Snacks Partners, JBS Confinamento, etc. Here's JBS Holdings. So I parsed all of this into a table that breaks it out by the activity, literally using the words from the annual report, or the financial statement as they call it, using the words of the activity, the name of the, I don't know if they would call this business unit or not, because in the other part of the financial statements, they do use the phrase business unit, and there's only these 5: JBS Brazil, Sierra, Pilgrims, JBS USA Pork, JBS USA Beef. Not to be confused with JBS Australia. So I don't know if they call these business units or not, but in the annual financial statement, they break the operational activity across this description of these corporate entity things that may or may not be business units. Some of them do line up directly with what they call a business unit. JBS USA, for example. Others are more sort of miscellaneous. Rigamonti Salumificio. So anyway, I then said, okay, this is the entity. This is the activity down the left. Where is this happening? And then where it's green, that is where I understand live animals become dead. That's how I made them green. Something was alive, or plants, by the way, or fish. Something was alive, and then it became dead by going through, or processed, by going through JBS's operations. And the pink kind of salmon color here is, from what I understand, the activity is the thing is already dead, and this company is just processing it. So that's what's going on there. Lots of different activities across the world. One thing that kind of jumped out was what happened to Pilgrims, because earlier in the report, Pilgrims, in the financial statements, Pilgrims is one of the business units, and it's almost a quarter of the business. Whereas when I look at all of the activities, Pilgrims isn't listed. Very confused. Also, I just thought it was kind of interesting that they talk about pork, processing hogs, beef, cattle, etc. And then when there's one part that talks about bresaola, and I'd never heard that word before, so I looked it up, and it's often horse meat. So I thought it was interesting that they're using the word bresaola and not horse meat. And when I dug a little deeper into Rigamonte salumificio, I did indeed see on their website promotion of high quality horse meat. So that was interesting. There's more to this table. It goes on. Once I got here, I was like, okay, I need to really simplify this, because my objective is not to give a detailed report on what JBS does. My objective is to understand what JBS does so that I can assess best as I am able and share with the world, is this company contributing to an economy and service of life? What would that look like? So I decided to take the activities as best I understand them, which, as you're hearing in this long and winding road, isn't all that great, but I hopefully understand something, and to just visualize it and create a very basic business model infographic that, to the best of my abilities, represents all of their corporate activity. I did this using PowerPoint. I can say more about that if that's useful. And this is still in progress. I think there's more I'm going to finalize here. If you have feedback, by the way, you see mistakes or things you would recommend that I change, you could drop a note, either a comment on these slides or in the guest book. And this is meant to encompass all of the live creatures and the plants and other ingredients that go through the processing or slaughtering, through their machinery, and there's things like they produce and sell electricity. They manage industrial waste, etc. So I tried to encapsulate every product: leather, collagen, soap, pet food, every category of the humans, from workers, managers, operators, farmers, somewhere in their supply chain. They seem a little not mentioned, but I'm hoping to find more. And obviously humans, consumers who are eating the food. So I give a bit more interpretive information about this business model infographic, and next up, or soon up, will be taking a closer look, now that I at least have a more detailed grasp of what they actually do, including the logistics and transport that they own, etc., and put some specific questions to really shape the themes and possible recommendations. And that'll circle me back to the themes that I hope to explore in a little bit more detail, now that I've kind of made it through the confusing disclosures. So that is a little tour of where I am, and frankly, why I've been in mental glue. But I feel like I'm getting kind of unstuck and making progress, and I expect to have a pretty final assessment to share within, well, I won't put an official timeline, but let's just say it won't be after March. Thanks for coming along with me. This was a long one. I really welcome your feedback and questions, because as you can see, it's challenging. Thanks for coming.